He didn't run. He didn't hide. He shot an 18-year-old kid in the chest, and then he sat down, calm as ever, and he said, "Take me, I'm ready." Grady Stiles Jr., the infamous Lobster Boy, was no longer just a sideshow star. He was a murderer, and this was just the beginning. Before the trial, before the media circus, before the revenge, he was just a man with clawed hands and a grip no one in his family could escape. I'm Jay.
I'm Kai. Welcome back.
Welcome back. This is part 2 of the story of Grady Stiles Jr., also known as the Lobster Boy. Chambers of the Occult may contain content that might not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Lobster Boy. If you haven't seen part 1, which was our last episode we've put out, make sure to check that out before this one. It really does set the vibe. It sets the tone, the context for what we're going to be getting into today.
Yeah.
Which I still don't know about. I did no research after that part 1 episode. So
yeah, I was about to ask you.
I'm looking forward to hearing the rest.
If you actually did any research.
No, I didn't look at anything.
Good. Because for some of the listeners, it might have been like they're binge listening or watching. So for them, no time has passed. For you, however,
wish I was you.
It's been a couple days.
Yeah, it's been, what, a week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you're having to wait a week for the new episode to be released on TV.
Yeah. I had to wait a week. It's like, the next episode in the series. But I'm excited. That was a good little quick recap at the start. So I'm ready whenever.
Yeah. Listeners, if you enjoy this 2-parter, let us know. We might do more of them. If you didn't like waiting, let us know. But yeah.
Would they be waiting 2 weeks for this? Because are we putting out?
This is going out tomorrow.
Oh, this is going out. Okay, sick. Okay.
So I'm staying up tonight to get this out tomorrow for them.
Gotcha. Okay, so next week is going to be our collab episode. Got it. Okay, cool.
Or Old News Nonsense, because it's the first of the month. Or both. I don't know. Probably the collaboration.
Yeah.
Listeners,
honestly,
keep an eye out. Something's coming your way.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's a great episode. We recently did a collab with another podcast. So, yeah.
Yeah. So either way, you're getting either Old News Nonsense or you're getting a collaboration. You're getting a little treat.
Yeah, you're getting something a little different from these regular episodes. So exciting stuff. Make sure to stay tuned.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's continue with this. So
yeah,
we left last episode with Grady Stiles Jr., also known as Lobster Boy, being interrogated by the cops and being informed that Jack, his daughter's fiance, was now pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital, which the case was now officially a homicide.
Yes.
So now Grady Stiles, Lobster Boy, would be a murderer awaiting trial.
A murderer who didn't even care that he'd killed this kid.
Nope. like I said, he just sat, waited for the cops to show up, and then he said, "Take me. I'm ready."
Yeah.
And I do remember.
I still think it's so funny.
Well, you said funny, and I do remember that you said, "How did they put the handcuffs on him?"
Did I say that?
Well, yeah,
That's
you were
some
like, "How did
funny
they?"
shit.
Because lobster hands, claws.
I'm so funny, guys. Oh my god.
Which
Applause to
you make a
Pastor.
good point. But at least he complied.
Okay.
So anyway, at this point, it's 1:18 a.m. on September 28, 1978, and Grady Stiles is officially charged with first-degree murder.
Okay.
At this point, this charge is serious, not just because of the crime, but because in the state of Pennsylvania, which is where whole case is taking place, first-degree murder carries the death penalty.
Damn. Okay.
Yep. So at this point, the authorities knew that they were dealing with a unique defendant because, of course, Grady Stiles couldn't walk. His claws, hands, his deformity didn't apply just to his hands, but to his legs as well. He used his claw arms to drag himself across floors, so he had massive upper body strength. And he couldn't really sit in a standard courtroom chair. And his appearance alone made him a spectacle.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why he got so popular and like famous in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So
He worked
I'm sure that complicates things as well with this whole process.
Of course, he wasn't just the accused, he was the center of attention, which is what he was his entire life. He was used to this. And while he was awaiting trial, Grady was held in jail. But even behind bars, he wasn't quiet because, like we know, he loved to talk. When he was a child, he was a charmer. When his wife left him, he came up with a story of how his wife was the villain. So now that he was behind bars, he talked to officers, journalists, anyone that would listen. And once again, he crafted a story. He painted a narrative that he was a good father that was just pushed too far. He was a disabled man trying to protect his underage daughter from a no-good boyfriend. And this was when Grady's lack of remorse wasn't just noticeable, it was also chilling to some people. So this is when Anthony DiCello, his public defender, is assigned to Grady's case. And he spent hours interviewing him before the trial. He needed to get Grady's story straight, without contradictions. But what stood out wasn't the content, it was delivery. Because when Grady talked about the murder, his tone was flat, clinical. There was no remorse, no hesitation, not even anger. It's almost like if Grady was just walking someone through a grocery list. And then DiCello would later recall, he didn't show any feelings at all. It was just facts, like he was reading from a manual, he would later say.
Weird.
Yeah. But the moment the conversation shifted to his sex life, Grady lit up.
What?
Yep. So, talking about the murder, completely monotone.
No, he doesn't care.
As soon as the sex comes up, the monotone is replaced with something.
That's the good stuff.
Exactly. That's what he wants to talk about. And then this is he said, everyone I had sex with wanted to have sex with my claws.
Huh?
Yep.
I don't want to picture that.
Yep. He told DiCello with pride and thick in his voice, they love it when I use my claws.
I'm so scared right now.
Oh, no. Yeah. Going through this research and then finding that there was a section that he talked about this was very disturbing. Because in one side, it's a murder case, and yet he starts talking about his sex life. And I'm like, how is this relevant? And it kind of just paints the picture of the type of person he is.
And how he acted, his whole demeanor with this whole murder and killing this kid and how he handled all of it after it. Yeah.
Yep. So
I get why.
Barbara, his wife at the time, she kind of nodded in agreement from her seat beside him. And as to prove his point, Grady shared another disturbing story because a teacher from his daughter's school at Donna's once came to the house to discuss her attendance because Donna hadn't been going to school regularly because she had fallen for Jack, her boyfriend at the time, the one that got killed. So Donna, instead of focusing on school,
focused on him, and
she focused on him. And then Grady told DiCello, this teacher, she really liked my claws. We had sex right in the house, and she just kept coming back and back and back because of this.
Okay, I'm calling bullshit on that one. Like, that's definitely a lie. It has to be.
Don't know, because there's no more talk.
I mean,
about this.
I'm thinking, okay, what year was this again?
This was 1978.
Okay, so they like had readily available phones. Like the teacher could have called him to talk about it, but she decided to show up to his house?
And if he showed up again and again, maybe.
Okay, I guess maybe like she used this conversation as an excuse to like go over to his house because she like intended on having sex with him.
And then maybe because he was like a kind of quote unquote local celebrity or like, like.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, apparently to DiCello, it became like painfully clear that to Grady, his deformity or like what the world saw as his like limitation, he saw as his greatest asset because his ability to seduce normal women gave him like a sense of triumph to like be all.
I was about
odds.
to say good for him. I was
That's
about to
how
say
he
good for
saw
him,
it.
like body positivity, like he's, taking charge of who he is, but it's like he's using it because he's a fucking like player and he's taking advantage of women.
At the same time,
okay,
I mean,
maybe-
we know
maybe
he's a
not
horrible
good for
person
him.
at this point. We know that he abused both of his wives, his children. He
Exactly.
killed an 19-year-old. I forgot how old he was.
In cold blood, and
Yeah. And then DiCello said when he talked about that, it was like he just won a war. Like he survived something monumental and came out victorious.
wow.
So this wasn't a man that was weighed down by guilt or self-loathing. This was a man that celebrated his power. However grotesque it was, a man who saw his body, just like you said, not as a prison, but as a weapon. He wasn't hiding in shame. He was flaunting his freakishness like a badge of honor. And to him, the carnival wasn't some backwater stage of misfits. It was his kingdom. Because we already know that Grady didn't see himself as a sideshow act. In his mind, it wasn't a freak tent. It was Carnegie Hall. Grady Stiles wasn't just an attraction. He was the attraction.
Yeah.
He was a dominant figure in a world built on a spectacle. But the prosecutors, of course, were not buying it. Because Jack, Donna's boyfriend, had been unarmed. He had only just come into the house to look for the wheelchair that had been stolen from Grady. Something Grady himself had likely moved to set up the confrontation.
Wow. So he like planned this out.
That's what the theories were at this point. Yep. And the shot had permeated, fired from a .32 caliber revolver that Grady had purchased just 2 weeks earlier at a pawn shop. And not only that, Grady had shot through the door, catching Jack in the chest. Jack had stumbled out of the house, bleeding profusely, and collapsed on the streets.
God.
And according to the evidence, Grady fired not once, but twice. So the trial... where did I leave off? There we go. The trial brought national attention because here was a man born with lobster claws on trial for cold-blooded murder. He couldn't walk.
Yeah.
He had other chronic illnesses, and he had a public defender, and pretty much he painted himself a sad story. His lawyers argued that he couldn't possibly survive in prison, much less on death row. They claimed that he was a crippled man who acted out of passion, not premeditation. They emphasized how he feared for his daughter's safety. They pointed out to his deformity, health issues, and family dysfunction. And it worked.
Well, of course it did. Of course it did. Yeah. Of course they were going to believe him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because in 1979, the jury found Grady guilty of third-degree murder, not first.
Huh. Okay.
And the court acknowledged that he had intended to kill Jack, but they believe that it came from rage, not from planning.
So it was a crime of passion.
Kind of, yeah. They said that, it wasn't premeditated. But the real shocker came during his sentencing. Because Grady's severe physical disabilities, there was no prison facility in Pennsylvania that was equipped to handle him. He couldn't climb stairs. He couldn't go to the bathroom without assistance. He needed care. So the judge, considering all of this, gave one of the most controversial sentences in Pennsylvania's legal history. 15 years of probation, no prison time.
15 years of probation?
With no prison time.
And no prison time?
Yep.
So he was convicted of murder and then sent home with a warning.
Basically.
Is essentially how this went.
Yep.
That is crazy.
Grady Stiles, a man who murdered his daughter's boyfriend in cold blood, was sent home on probation.
Okay.
The judge said, this man is incapable of being incarcerated in a facility that can meet his needs without violating basic human rights. I'm not so sure that a prison term would not be cruel and unusual punishment in this case.
Okay.
Unquestionably, though, the crime was a serious offense.
I can see that, honestly. Yeah. Like, I definitely can understand where they're coming from, of it being, like, cruel and unusual and, like, unconstitutional and whatnot. However, why did they choose to pay attention to this now? Like, I don't feel like the police or the government or anyone really would have cared or did care in most situations. Like American history, like, historically, we don't give a fuck about people with disabilities. Like, that's how America is. Yeah. But they just decided to this one time with him. That's crazy.
I don't know if it's because it was such a huge spectacle, because people knew him, because word got around, because, they knew him as Lobster Boy. I genuinely don't know why. But yeah, Grady went home.
Wow.
This man returned to the carnival. He returned to his family, and he returned to the life that, in many ways, he picked right up where he left off. The only difference...
a small little hiccup.
Yep, the only difference is that now people around him were not just afraid of his strength. They were afraid of his rage. And the fact that he had gotten away with murder.
Wow.
Because at this point, Grady Stiles walked out of that courtroom in 1979 a free man. He wasn't just free, but he was smug. He had killed an unarmed teenager in front of his daughter, confessed, shown no remorse, and still
Got away with it.
no jail cell, no orange jumpsuit, no accountability. He got away with it. The justice system looked at his deformities, at his claw-like hands, his broken body, and declared him too disabled to be punished. And quickly, they would realize that this decision wasn't mercy. It was a mistake.
Yes, it was.
Because Lobster Boy didn't
Do it
change.
again. Why would he?
Yeah?
Why would he? He got away with everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to keep on doing it until, he faces consequences, which he probably never will,
This is why this is a
The court
two-parter,
literally
Kai.
just ruled. Yeah. Oh, God. Okay. I'm ready for it.
Are you? So, Grady returned to the carnival circuit and to his wife Barbara, settling once again into the life beneath the canvas. But the man that came back wasn't humbled by his murder trial. He was emboldened. And he had beaten the system. And he was, of course, worse than ever. He left Pittsburgh shortly after the sentencing, and he never paid DeCello the $14,000 legal fee that he owed.
The fuck?
Mm-hmm. DeCello would later recall, he never even said thank you. Never.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Why would he?
The money he saved went towards organizing his own traveling sideshow.
Okay.
So Grady would no longer be Lobster Boy working for anyone else.
He was working for himself.
He would now be working for himself, running his own crew, 10 acts strong. He would be a traveling spectacle that would only answer to himself. And it was within this insulated carnival that Grady thrived. He didn't have to hide his temper. He didn't have to soften his rough edges. He didn't need to ask for forgiveness.
Nope.
You got to remember, said
He could get away
DeCello,
with whatever he wanted.
these people were in the same boat as their own little protective world. You wouldn't associate them with. They realized that they were very defensive people. Very defensive, DeCello said. And pretty soon, the drinking escalated. The violence became routine. The threats came like clockwork. And, like before, he was especially cruel to his children. Donna, Kathy, Glenn, Grady III. At this point, they were all teenagers or young adults. They had grown up under his father's fists, and they knew one thing with certainty. Their father was untouchable. Because
he got away with everything he had done. And I'm sure, of course, they were just so scared of what he was going to do next.
Yeah. Grady used his freedom as a weapon. At the carnival, he would sit proudly in his wheelchair, drinking in hand, boasting to the other patrons like, I got away with murder. They couldn't lock me up. No prison could hold the lobster man. And he wasn't exaggerating. He'd flaunt the court's decision like a badge of honor. He told people he could do it again, and no one would stop him. He would say this to Barbara. He would say it to the kids. Over time. Over and over. And they began to believe him. The bruises on Barbara's arms, they returned. Sometimes they were hand-shaped. Sometimes they were caused by being thrown against furniture. And the kids, they quickly stopped dreaming of escaping. But one person hadn't forgotten what Grady had done. One person had been there through it all. Teresa.
Who?
His first wife.
Yeah.
After years apart, and despite everything that she endured, Teresa found herself circling back to the man that caused her so much pain.
My God.
So during the 1980s, during her life with Glenn, the midget man, that's what he was known at during at the circus.
Yeah.
He had turned into a quiet but difficult existence because Glenn's business failed after a welding accident left him in a wheelchair full time. So money was tight, and while there wasn't outright violence in the household, there was consistent emotional drain because Glenn needed Teresa's help constantly, and their relationship became strained. So Teresa was worn down by years of hardship and longing for stability, and she began to romanticize her past with Grady. So, in a strange twist of fate, it was Grady, a newly single after Barbara divorced him, who re-entered her life.
Oh, weird. Okay. I mean, he brags so much about, all these women he's getting. Like, why go back?
I mean, I think it was just a teacher.
Oh, okay.
So he re-entered her life. He promised her that he had changed, that he had found God,
as they all do,
and that he was sober. And Grady was sober for a while because he had been diagnosed with, I think it was like kidney failure or something.
Okay, so he needed to be sober.
So he needed to, yep. Yeah. And that the old lobster boy, the violent man, that she once fled was gone for good. And in Teresa's vulnerable state, she wanted to believe him. Not just because she remembered him, his sweet side, but because she had kids with him, that she lost custody for without even having a chance to fight for. Yeah.
Yeah.
She would start speaking to him on the phone. Then she would visit him. She would see that he wouldn't drink, that he wouldn't have those raging fits. And she would eventually pack up and move in with the kids. She would move down into Inglewood Drive in Florida, where Grady lived.
Mm-hmm.
And by 1989, Teresa and Grady were officially remarried.
Wow. So 10 years after the murder, essentially, she's back with him because she believes he's truly a changed man. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, Teresa.
Because you got to let that sink in. The woman whose life had been ruined, who had watched him terrorize their children, who had survived his fist, his threats, married this man again. And for a moment, it seemed like it could work.
Teresa, no, honey.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I felt bad for her as well. Because also strangely and almost shockingly, Grady Stiles, he approved of Donna's new husband.
Okay.
So after years of control and threats and even the murder of her previous boyfriend, you would expect that no man would ever be good enough for his daughter.
Yeah. Or why she would even try to gain her dad's approval for a guy. Or, honestly, the fact that if I was the guy, I wouldn't even want to be in this family. I'd be worried I'm going to get murdered by her dad. Like, what?
Yeah,
okay.
It's interesting because so many things change at this point that it's very questionable what is happening. So Donna meets Joe Miles. And when Donna met Miles, after the whole chaos of her teenager years, after she ran away and she survived, her fiance getting murdered, Joe was a breath of fresh air. He was gentle, grounded, and he met Donna in Florida. They began dating, they fell in love quickly, and it wasn't long before they were engaged. Like I mentioned, the wild part was that Grady actually approved. As a matter of fact, Grady gave Donna and Joe his blessing.
Wow.
And according to accounts, he didn't even make a scene about this. There was no threats, no whiskey-fueled outbursts, no guns. He just looked at Donna and he said, "Do you love him? Are you in love with him? Does he love you?" And when she said yes, Grady simply said, "Okay." That was it. The same man who had murdered a teenager boy for dating his daughter was suddenly handing her over to another man.
Yeah.
Why?
See, something that I clicked in my head just a minute ago when you were saying it, I was like, maybe he approved of this Joe because he saw a lot of himself in him, and that would turn out to not be a good thing. But I'm sure that's what you're going to get into. So,
yeah, well, so some believe that Grady was trying to turn over a new leaf. Others think that it was all about control.
That too.
Maybe he felt safer because Joe wasn't taking Donna away like Jack did.
Okay.
Or perhaps he was simply too worn down by age, alcohol, and guilt to fight it anymore. Whatever the reason,
theory, yeah.
Grady even gave them $300 from his pocket.
Wow.
To help pay for the wedding. Money that he had earned from a show.
It's definitely about control.
Could be. But Donna, saw the money. She was stunned. This was not the reaction she would expect from him, from the man that had taken the life of her previous lover.
Yeah.
And this was one of those rare moments that for Donna, she saw her dad as kind of like a former shadow, like the Grady Stiles she knew was kind of gone, if not at least pushed to the side momentarily.
Yeah.
But
my God, so there was hope. She was like, "Oh my God, he has changed. He's approving of this. He gave me his blessing. He's helping me pay for this wedding. Maybe things are different."
It didn't last though. Because the drinking came back. I'm not sure at what point or what made him go back into drinking, but Grady Stiles just took the bottle back up and he started drinking again. And when he starts drinking,
and worse all over again,
the abuse comes back. He came back into his old patterns. Yep. Verbal abuse, physical. The man that Teresa once ran from was back again. And Teresa had fewer options left. She had nowhere to run. She was older. She was wearier. She was more tired than ever before. And on the night of 1992, during a card game in New York, Grady snapped. He dragged Teresa by the hair into his trailer, shouting for more liquor. She refused. So he tried to rip the hair out from her scalp. Then he...
Oh my God.
Then he pushed her down, hands at her throat, screaming. And it was only when he let go that she realized that this wasn't going to end differently.
So what did she do? Could she do anything?
She stayed. Whether it was out of fear, trauma, she remained. The only difference is that this time, others were watching. Her daughter Kathy and her daughter Kathy's husband Joe, they were growing more and more furious to the man who dominated that family with terror.
Yeah. Good.
And it was this night
They should be angry.
that a seed was planted.
They're gonna kill him. He does die. Oh my God.
You said this in part 1. Was that
I know.
foreshadowing?
I was wanting him to die so badly. Oh my God.
Well, Grady's behavior on the carnival circuit had only gotten worse. He was drinking. He would micromanage every aspect of the show. He would refuse others to take control. Tension escalated between him and Joe over everything, from show scheduling to money. And at one point, Grady accused his own family of stealing money from the ticket box and bragged to Merman, the magician, that he couldn't trust this shitty people working for me. At this point, Grady was filled with paranoia, and it was eating him alive. Merman recalled Grady ranting about how Teresa would walk out of the trailer, slam the door, and curse about the bastard he was. I could kill him, she'd say under her breath, half as a joke, half as a warning. And the warning would soon become a plan.
Let's go. He does die.
I knew that you would be behind
Please.
this.
Please.
So while traveling from town to town, the conversation started small. A whispered comment here, a buried look there, until one day in July, it became a full sentence. I want him dead, Teresa said. Kathy didn't
Good for
flinch.
her.
I want him dead, she echoed. In that moment, mother and daughter were bound by something deeper than blood or fear. It was a mutual understanding that they couldn't live under Grady Stiles' shadow anymore. And they sure as hell were not going to die by his hands.
His claws.
Fair, by his claws, yes. Over the next few weeks, the conversations became less and less abstract, less emotional, more logistical.
More direct.
Yep.
How were they going to do this, right?
Exactly. They had reason to believe that Grady suspected something. He was threatening to cut ties with the entire family and start fresh with a new crew next season. Next year, we're not bringing any of the family, he had told Merman. I'll get rid of everybody and the hell with them. It wasn't just abuse, it was exile. For Teresa and Kathy, that meant survival was slipping away. Their jobs, their home, their fragile safety net. Grady had them by the throat in every way that counted. They whispered in the trailers, in diners off Florida highways, behind carnival tents while the audience clapped for dancing bears and fire eaters. Who would do it? How much would it cost? Could they make it look like a break-in? Glenn was the first to float a name. A teenager named Chris Wyant was 17 at the time, but old enough to know how to hold a gun and desperate enough to use one. So Chris had hung around carnivals for a while. He was looking for somewhere to belong, and he had fallen in with Glenn, who saw the boy as pliable, loyal, and in partly expendable. He looks up to me, Glenn said. He'll do what I say. Teresa wasn't convinced at first. Chris was young, reckless, but when Glenn offered to handle the arrangements, to be the middleman between the money and the bullet, Teresa let it happen. Glenn reached out to Chris. She said it was a job, one that could save lives. "We'll pay you," Glenn told him. "You won't get caught," he promised. "He deserves it," he said. The price? $1,500.
Sheesh. Oh my God.
Teresa had it ready. She saved it from months of the box office, skimmed and carefully siphoning from Grady's carnival earnings. So Grady wasn't crazy. Teresa was taking money from the box office. Money for Grady's killing. Ironically, Grady had paid for his own execution. And once the money was promised, there was no turning back. Now, on November 29, 1992, Grady was drunk. He was always drunk by sundown. And he had spent the day yelling at little Grady about stage setup, cursing about the rain that had washed out the crowd, and demanding beer. By the evening, he was slouched in his recliner, watching Ruby, a 1970 horror flick that he loved. Teresa had fed him dinner, poured him another drink, and then quietly left the room. Outside, Chris waited. He slipped through the shadows of the trailer park like a ghost, a .32 caliber Colt automatic in his pocket, borrowed through Dennis Cowell, a family associate who helped secure the gun because Chris was too young to buy one himself. Teresa left the back door unlocked.
Oh, okay.
Chris crept in. Grady didn't even have time to turn his head. The first bullet entered through the back of his skull, and the second into the base of the neck. The third struck just behind his ear. Blood pooled in the creases of his recliner. His drink slipped from his hand, spilling across his lap. Chris stood frozen for a moment, staring at what he had done. The body twitched once, then nothing. The television continued to drone. Ruby, the movie, still flickered across the screen. Chris turned and left the way that he came, slipping through the back door, the gun still warm in his jacket pocket. Grady was dead.
I don't like the guy, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think you were going to get into like that much detail with this murder. Like I was able to just picture it all in my head. Wow.
Yeah.
I think you definitely glossed over it. I didn't say anything, but like, how did they just find the guy who was ready to commit a murder?
Well,
like,
Chris was like a teenager that would like hang around the carnival. He was trying to find a place that he could belong. He liked the carnival, you know, kind of how like his first wife, Teresa, also lingered around carnivals because she liked them. Chris was very much the same way.
And so he just wanted to fit in, and he was willing to do a lot in order to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
you know, it was kind of funny. You were like, yeah, you know, he sat down, watched the show. Teresa brought him dinner. She could have just like poisoned his food or something.
yeah.
Like easily. Or I don't know. But she chose to have a kid shoot him 3 times. So, okay.
Once again, if I don't know, I think they were thinking if I poison him, that can be tracked down to me. If we make it look like a break-in, then
Okay, yeah, you're right. I didn't really think of that.
yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it just looks sort of like a breaking and entering, like gone, like turned into murder type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so it was Grady's son, Grady Stiles III.
He's dead.
Yeah, who would discover the body first.
Finally.
It would be around 11:30 p.m. that he walked into the trailer expecting another night of grumbling and drinking. Instead, he found his father slumped in the chair, unmoving, blood soaked in his shirt and in the cushion. "Dad," he called out. No response. He stepped closer. The glow of the TV illuminated the mess, and that's when he saw it. Blood from Grady's ear. Grady's eyes were glassy. His mouth hung open. The smell of iron hung thick in the air. And panic hit. Grady III backed out of the room. His breath caught in his throat. He stumbled towards the neighboring trailer. He banged at the door. He screamed for someone to call the police. It was Grady's son, Grady III, like I said, who discovered the body. And by the next morning, word had spread. Lobster Boy was dead. Shot execution style in his trailer. For some, it was shocking. For others, especially those who knew him personally, it felt like it was inevitable. Inevitable. Yep.
Yeah.
Finally catching up. At first, the authorities tried to treat it like a possible robbery. But things didn't add up. Nothing was ransacked. Valuables were still there.
Door wasn't broken into.
Nope, the door had been left open, not kicked in.
Exactly.
And then came the whispers from the neighbors, from fellow performers, from inside the family itself. It wasn't long before detectives began conducting informal interviews, beginning with the person who seemed to know the most, Glenn Newman Jr. They found Glenn at his trailer, trying hard to not look nervous. "We just want to ask you a few things," Detective Willett said calmly, not yet reading him his rights. Glenn nodded. And as the questions began, Glenn rambled. He was cooperative, but clearly strained. Within a few minutes, he was already naming names, deflecting the blame, redirecting the focus. "Listen," he said, his voice crackling. "It wasn't just me. Teresa, my mom, she talked about it first. She said she couldn't take it. She said she needed him gone."
Wow.
Willette leaned forward. "Gone how?" "She didn't say it like that," Glenn stammered, "but I knew what she meant." That was enough. Detectives escorted Glenn to the station, where he gave a full tape statement. He explained how his mother had come to him weeks earlier, desperate, shaken, how she said she feared for her life, how Grady's drunken violence had become a threat to everyone in the trailer park, to the family, to the kids. "Mom paid me $1,500, Glenn said, voice barely above a whisper. "Said it was for the guy who'd do it. I knew someone. I passed the money along." That someone was Christopher Wyant, a teen who had floated around the carnival scene, young, aimless, and needing cash. Glenn claimed it was Wyant who pulled the trigger, not him. And that's when the domino fell quickly. That same night, the detectives pulled up to the Stiles residence. They knocked on the door. Teresa answered. She didn't ask why they were there. She just nodded. She grabbed her jacket and she said, "I'll go with you." And it would be on November 30th, 1922, at 10:30 p.m. at the Butchman Plaza interrogation room that Teresa sat across the detective, Detective Willett and Figueroa. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were dry, not scared, not bracing. Willett was patient. He read her Miranda rights. Then he slid over the consent to interview form. She signed it. Teresa, he began. Glenn told us the whole thing. There was a pause. And then Teresa said, my husband was very abusive. To me, to my kids. He'd beat us when he drank. And he always drank. I just wanted out. I wanted him gone. But I didn't pull the trigger. Willett asked, so you arranged it? She nodded. I gave Glenn $1,500. He said he'd take care of it. I didn't know who exactly. I just needed it done. When asked if she ever met Chris Wyatt, she admitted that she had, but insisted she never asked him directly to kill Grady. The arrangement, she said, was made between Glenn and Wyatt. She simply paid for it. He was going to kill me, she added after a long silence. I knew it. I could feel it.
Interesting little loophole. Right.
That she didn't like.
I didn't arrange it. It was their deal.
I just paid for it. You know?
Yeah.
I didn't know who was getting hired. I just gave him the money for him to hire someone to do it. I don't know how much of a loophole that is because...
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's not really going to...
It's much. Like a hitman for hire. Like, you still hired someone
Yeah.
to kill someone.
Yeah.
And on December 1st, 1992, at 11:15 a.m., Christopher Wyatt was taken into custody. He was still just a teenager. Christopher looked like he hadn't slept in days. When they read his rights, he didn't resist, but he also didn't speak. He refused to give a statement. He asked for an attorney. That silence would speak volumes later in court, especially when Glenn's testimony, the recovered murder weapon, and Teresa's confession all would line up against him. Meanwhile, Detective Willett was already working another angle. Another tip from Glenn. He opened the trunk of the LTD and found a dirty rubber boot Chris had worn that night, muddy, caked with evidence, and guided by a family friend, Cowell, the police entered a wooden area near Bullfrog Creek, and there, near the palmetto tree, they found a .32 caliber Colt automatic pistol. Still loaded.
There it is.
Ballistics would later confirm it was the murder weapon. They were getting the evidence that they needed. So, by the time that the clock struck midnight, at that point authorities had the whole trifecta. The motive, the means, opportunity. And with that, Mary Teresa Stiles, her son Glenn, and Christopher Wyatt were all charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like they Grady gets off with less than they do. Yeah.
Oh, but Teresa's story is far from over because now her defense would hinge on something rare. Battered wife syndrome.
Yes. Yes.
So
good for her.
Let's start with the trial of Christopher Wyatt because they were all given their separate trials. On January 18th, 1994, in Hillsborough County Courthouse, Christopher Wyatt, now 19 years old, Sat at the defense table in a worn Miami t-shirt, old prison pants, a far cry from the cocky kids some people had known in Gibson Town. And he was first to face jury, charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Mm-hmm. The prosecution painted him as the hired gun who pulled the trigger without hesitation. It was premeditated, a clean execution, they told the jury, 3 bullets to the head. They played the confession tapes. They showed the murder weapon. They brought up Harry Glenn Newman Jr., who testified about planting the payment. Chris said, "I'll do it, no problem." Glenn told the court he knew what he was walking into. To strengthen the motive and intent, prosecutors even took the jury on a video tour of the trailer park, retracting Chris's steps to show how calculated the murder was. No rash decisions. This was a plan. The defense had little to work with because Chris had refused to testify. His lawyers painted him as a confused, manipulated teen who never meant to kill anyone. But the jury didn't buy it. After a tense deliberation, Chris Wyant was found guilty of murder in the second degree with a firearm and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 27 years. He was sentenced 27 to life.
God damn. Yeah, he got it worse than Grady.
Oh, yeah. And then we have Teresa Stiles and her trial. On July 11th, 1994, her judge would be Judge M. William Graybill. And from the start, her trial would be different because, like I said, it wasn't just about murder. It was about fear, trauma, and whether a woman so abused could be held criminally responsible for orchestrating her husband's death. Her defense attorney, Arnie Levine, took an unorthodox route. He admitted the crime, but pleaded that it was done out of necessity. She had no way out, he told the jury. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. They called it battered spouse syndrome.
Battered. Mm-hmm.
It was a rarely accepted legal defense in Florida at the time. To argue it, Levine had he lined up expert witnesses. There was Dr. Sidney Murrin, a psychologist that testified that Teresa was in a constant state of fear, suffering from long-term abuse, depression, and dependency. They also had Dr. Arturo Gonzalez, a Cuban-born psychiatrist who reinforced the diagnosis. And they also had Dr. Lenore Walker, author of The Battered Woman, was reinforced through the proceedings as well. So they showed photos of bruises. They called her children, including little Grady, who recounted the screaming, the punches, the way Teresa once held her ribs after being kicked. Even the neighbors remember Grady yelling, "I'll kill you and your family." Even with all this, the prosecution was pushing hard. This was no act of self-defense, argued prosecution Ron Haynes. She paid a kid to kill her husband, then lied about it. He questioned why Teresa could hire attorneys for custody battles, maintain property records, even run aspects of the family business, but suddenly be helpless when it came to murder. He also emphasized she wasn't even in the trailer when the shots were fired. The jury deliberated for 2 full days. And finally, on July 27th, 1994, the verdict came in. Guilty of manslaughter with a firearm, and guilty of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree. Teresa was stunned.
So her defense didn't work.
She didn't cry, but Kathy Barry did. She wheeled herself out of the courtroom in grief. The judge sentenced Teresa to 12 years with parole eligibility, and she had already spent almost 2 years behind bars awaiting trial.
So, yeah, 10 more.
Now, there's also Glenn Newman Jr., Teresa's son. Harry Glenn Newman Jr. had been the one that arranged the hit. He admitted to receiving $1,500 from his mother to make it happen. He passed it on to Wyatt, who pulled the trigger. And despite his confession, Glenn cooperated fully with authorities, offering a detailed account of how the plan was formed, even identifying the murder weapon at where it was buried at. Because of his cooperation, he struck a plea deal. Conviction was conspiracy to commit murder, and the sentence, time served plus probation. So it was controversial, but it was a strategic move on his side. The prosecution needed Glenn's testimony to secure the conviction of both Teresa and Wyatt. The public didn't love it, but the law valued the inside man who flipped. As for Dennis Caldwell, Dennis was the man who obtained the murder weapon, the .32 caliber Colt. Because Wyatt was underage and he couldn't buy one, Caldwell claimed that he didn't know what the gun would be used for. He thought that it was just for protection. But under interrogation, it was clear that he had at least some knowledge of what it was going to be used for. So the conviction was accessory to the fact. And sentence, well, it was never publicly disclosed. But it was likely that it included probation or a reduced charge because he most likely also cooperated. So the story of Lobster Boy is murder exploded across nation headlines. It was the kind of case of that tabloids dreams of, the kind of tabloids dream of, a carnival family, a murder for hire, and a man for his freak show fame and private monstrosity. The public, like everyone else, was divided with Teresa. Did they take her side? Did they say, no, she should be behind bars? No, battered wife syndrome. But the family attempted to move on. After the trials, after the family was fractured, Grady Stiles Jr. disappeared from public view. He reportedly lives under a new name. He tries to escape the legacy of his father. Donna, who had lost her first love to her father's rage, moved in with her husband, Joe's Miles, who Grady strangely approved of. And then Kathy Barry, Teresa's daughter, remained one of her mother's most vocal supporters, especially after witnessing the years of abuse firsthand. As for Teresa, she served a reduced sentence and she was eventually released. And her later years were quiet, no interviews, no statements, just a woman trying to live out the rest of her life, far away from the spotlight. And in the end, the story of Lobster Boy wasn't one of carnival fame or grotesque curiosity. It was the story of what happens when generational trauma is left unchecked, when power is abused behind closed doors, and when desperation becomes deadly. Grady Stiles Jr. was born into a world that both applauded him and exploited him, celebrated in the spotlight, and feared him in the shadows. His murder wasn't random. It wasn't senseless. It was a scream, a final violent exhale from a family that had long since run out of air. And in the end, Grady Stiles Jr. got away with murder once. But karma came crawling quiet, calculated, and clawed. And that is the case of Grady Stiles Jr., also known as Lobster Boy.
I'm gonna clap for that case. And the main reason I'm clapping is out of spite for him and to be a little humiliating because I don't think he can properly clap with those claws. So
fair. No, yeah.
Fuck you and your claws, Grady Stiles Jr.
He's somewhere a little bit warmer now.
A lot warmer.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know how I came across this case. I just went down a rabbit hole, and it was very enjoyable and very dark and very emotional.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm glad that you got to go down this rabbit hole with me, and listeners as well. So, next time that you think of something generational, think of trauma.
Unfortunately, generational trauma is
a thing.
all too common. Something that all of us need to work on healing and breaking the cycle from. Yeah.
I have
Some
a couple
crazy
pictures I'm going to send your way. I don't know if the listeners are going to want them. This is actually where I'm going to put the listeners to the test. If they want to see the pictures of Grady Stiles, like the crime scene pictures of the bullet, to let me know, because we can put this on the website. But otherwise,
let's hold off for now.
Yeah, definitely. I will share with you, however, some of the pictures of when he was taken into prison, when he was taken into the courthouse, and when the family members were given their mug shots and all that stuff. You can also see when they took him into, like, I wouldn't say like the cop car, but the special vehicle, because he was in a wheelchair. So they had to like accommodate for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also see Teresa Stiles, the gun that was used. Also the couch where he was sitting at. And like you can see a picture of them back there as well, where they seemed kind of happy. And then like Teresa Stiles slumped over at the defense table during the trial. It's a little unsettling, but...
Oh, I bet it is, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for coming back for part 2, listeners.
Yeah, thanks for finishing this. I'm really glad I got to hear the end of this story.
I think you were very happy knowing that he got killed.
Yes, I was. Yes, I fucking was.
I
Guy
think you would
deserves
have
to
been...
die. Sorry.
I mean, I think just from part 1, finding out that he didn't get killed in part 1 really upset you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
But yeah, Kai, take us away from murder, because I'm done with the dark stuff.
Oh, I'm taking us far away from murder.
Thank you.
I'm taking us, for our paranormal case here today. I didn't want to do a like spooky, serious, paranormal case. I wanted something short, really weird,
Okay.
but still sweet, you know?
Are we talking about fairies?
No, I mean, it's like a little more like ominous than that, but it's like reading through this, I'm just so amused. Like,
Okay.
I'm so amused by this story.
Cool. Don't know what we're getting into, but I'm ready for it. Is it in the
Alright.
States?
It is, yeah.
Ah, cool. Don't know where we're going.
Cool. So, okay. So picture this. It's 1903,
Okay.
and you're in Van Meter, Iowa.
Oh, already don't know what we're doing. Okay.
No? Okay, cool. Perfect. It's, you know, a small farming town. It's close-knit. You know, everybody knows each other pretty much. Like it smells like corn.
Okay.
You know,
I'm thinking, did you ever watch Footloose? That's the kind of town I'm picturing. Like small
Yeah,
town, everyone
yeah.
knows each other. Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like, so yeah, quiet town, you know.
Nothing ever happens.
The chimneys, nothing's happening. The
what's
wildest
up with the
thing
chimneys?
happening. Oh, just describing the houses. Like,
Oh,
they're
okay.
just, you know, have their fireplaces on,
Okay.
you know. But yeah, like you said, the wildest thing happening is like, it's like the new shipment of boots is arriving at the general store this week. Something like that. Like, you know, a little normal town.
Mm-hmm.
But then out of nowhere, people start seeing a thing, something.
Okay.
It's not a raccoon, not a bird,
Not a possum.
not a possum. No, nothing like that. Because we're talking about a 9-foot tall, bat-winged, humanoid weirdo with a spotlight coming out of its forehead.
With a spotlight? Are we talking the creature from the depths? I don't even know what we're talking about at this point. Like from the forehead?
Oh my god.
Is it like like a futuristic cyclops?
Oh, I'll get into it. Oh my
Huh.
god.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's a thing, you know. One guy tried to shoot it. That didn't work. Another guy also tried to shoot it.
I assume
Still
that didn't work.
And by night 5 of this creature's appearance in town, the entire town was like up in arms. They were like full like Scooby-Doo investigation
Pitchforks
mode. They were,
and
like,
torches.
Pitchfork ready.
That's what
Pitchfork
I'm
and torch ready.
picturing.
Yeah.
It's a
You know,
small
they were
town
sick.
where nothing
Yes.
happens. Yep.
Yes, they were sick and tired of whatever the hell this thing was, leaving these strange 3-foot wide claw prints, making creepy noises, leaving a terrible smell lying around.
Okay, smell
So-
as well.
So they run after it. They chase it down. Eventually, it vanishes into an old mine, never to be seen again.
Kai. No.
What?
Wait, you can't be done with this.
Oh, I'm not. No,
Okay.
there's more. I'm going to go into it.
Okay, you were like never to be seen again, and I'm like, you can't stop with this here.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
It's not this short, okay? This is the story of the Van Meter Visitor.
Van Meter Visitor.
Ever heard of it?
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, I'm not doubting you, but at the same time, Van Meter Visitor. Cool.
Cool.
Tell me more about it.
Okay, so it happens in Van Meter. It's 1903. It's fall. This is not the place where giant flying monsters are supposed to show up.
Oh, that's right. It's flying.
Dude.
I forgot about that thing.
So
I thought it was
funny.
just like a walking thing with a flight, but it flies.
Like the most drama that there is in this town is like somebody's cow wandering into the wrong cornfield or some shit like that. Like it
Teenage pregnancy, or someone cheating on someone. The basic high school drama.
Okay. So our case starts in the city of Van Meter. It was founded in 1869. It had just about 1,000-ish people, I believe, population.
That's not very big. Also, this town had been around for like 40 years before they saw this thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very young town.
Yes.
Very young residents as well.
So this started at about 1 a.m. the early morning of September 29th, 1903. A local businessman by the name of Ulysses Griffiths, he was driving into town, the small district, like business district of this house, when all of a sudden he just saw like the strangest just spotlight shining from one of the roofs of the buildings. It was some bright light. He thought it was maybe a worker, and he was ready to get out of his car to tell them off about it. Like, why are you shining this goddamn light?
Yeah.
He got out. He took a look. He called out, to whoever was operating that light, and then it moved. It leaped to the next rooftop, then to the next, and then eventually just flew away.
No.
So Griffiths the next day does what every sane person would do, and he tells the entire town about what he saw.
I don't know if that's something a sane person would do.
People didn't believe him, right?
But okay,
They're like,
exactly,
what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what?
Okay, Griffith.
Except for a couple of people, because a couple of people did say that they also noticed this strange light outside. They didn't really think too much of it, but definitely was not something they could explain. So the day goes by. People are intrigued, right? What is this story that's going around? Is it real? Is somebody making this up? Is this a prank that somebody's playing on the town? Who knows?
Are they
So the next day
too
happens. Exactly, right? Theories, right?
Yeah.
The next day happens. It's, again, very late. It's around 1:30 in the morning on September 30th, 1903.
Is this night number 2? Or night number 3?
Night number 2.
Okay.
Number 2. When the next, major encounter happens. So, not too far away from the home of Griffiths, who saw it the other, there was the office of the town doctor, Dr. Alcott, Alcott. Dr. Alcott, he sleeps in his office a lot of the time, is how it was described. So he woke up. He saw this bright light shining outside. He heard the stories. He didn't know what was going on, so he grabs his revolver. He runs outside. He's ready to confront whoever the hell is doing this to them.
Whoever is on the rooftops.
Now, exactly. He gets to the rooftop. He spots that light. It's not shining directly at him, right? So he could actually see it. And he described it as a large, at least 8-foot tall humanoid creature with large bat-like wings and a horn or a beak of some sort that had a light just shining right out of it.
That's so weird to like try to picture. Because it doesn't make sense. Like, I can't picture it.
No,
Do you,
seriously.
Do you
it's
have like
so
a
funny.
like
That's
a
why I
drawing
love
of this,
thing.
a picture
like
of
reference
this?
pictures?
Yeah.
Let me
Because
pull it up on
the
my
way
phone
I
real quick.
picture it, like I'm picturing a very like childish drawing, because that's the only thing I can
Yeah,
picture.
dude, it's so
I can't actually
funny.
picture something. I picture like a sketch of like a little kid drawing something.
Yes, like this is a sketch like an artist made, like using like references of how it was described in like rough sketches from old newspapers. It looks like a fucking Pokemon.
That's
It
not
looks
what
like
I
a
expected.
pterodactyl.
I was
It's
gonna
like a
say it looks like a
pterodactyl.
dinosaur.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but with
It's
the
like
beam. Like a laser beam.
Yeah. No,
Like
exactly.
it, like if it works for like the FBI or something, and someone put like a. That's so weird. I actually thought it was like
It's
a
so
person
funny.
with wings.
No. So in like it's described as a humanoid feature or like humanoid, but in drawings it is leaning more like bat-like or dinosaur-like in
Okay.
a way. It's so it of course there's not like great records.
What is the second one that you sent me? Because it looks like it's grabbing a horse.
Yeah, I have no clue.
Okay. Okay,
It's
that's
so
great
funny.
though.
It's just
Wow.
it's like part of an old newspaper article. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So Dr. Alcott, he is like, what the fuck is this thing? So he goes to like open fire, and as soon as he does it, it turns towards him and blinds him with the light.
But
But he
the light is just blinding, like it's not hurting them, right?
no, it's not like a death ray or some shit.
Okay.
It's just a light.
Okay, that's what I'm finding interesting. Like, what's the purpose of it?
Yeah. So he opens fire. He unloads his revolver at this thing up on the roof, and it's just completely unfazed. It stares at him. It's almost like it doesn't even register bullets are flying at it, anything like that. Dr. Alcott runs back inside. He shuts the doors, and the creature just seemed to have vanished. It up and flew away.
What?
No.
See, the way that my brain has pictured this through the story has evolved until now we have a drawing of it. At first, I pictured a very cyborg-like creature.
A cyborg?
A very cyborg-like creature. And then now it's very pterodactyl type of creature.
It's like dinosaur, pterodactyl. Yeah.
Yeah. So like it has completely evolved, like
Super
devolved, I would say. So
So
keep going.
the third night happens. Night number 3, so at this point it would be October 1st. Nothing really happens. It's more of a quiet night. Throughout the night, residents of the town notice, strange noises coming from outside. They'll smell a sort of rotting, terrible scent. It's also described that the doctor smelled that scent outside when he opened fire on this creature. But other than that, the third night, nothing really happens. But there's a lot of fear, right? Businesses are staying closed. People aren't going outside. They don't want to risk encountering whatever this thing that's been terrorizing their town
Are they
is.
closed during the day?
At this point, yeah. People are, not every business, but there's that fear, right? People are cautious. They're not sure what's going on.
Oh wow. Okay.
The fourth day happens. And this is when the third main encounter is recorded.
Who sees
So-
this creature now?
There's 2 versions of this, actually.
And do they have a gun?
The Yes,
sorry,
they do.
sorry, I'm getting ahead of
Okay.
myself.
No, you're fine.
Because
No,
it
no,
seems
no,
like
no.
everyone is walking around with a gun in their pocket.
Yeah. So there's 2 different versions to look at this from. In all of like the research that I've done, the name Clarence Dunn pops up. And so Clarence Dunn is described as the like bank manager of the local bank. who sees this, but in a newspaper clipping from back then, it's not Clarence Dunn, it's Peter Dunn.
Okay.
And Peter Dunn is described as just a bank cashier.
So should we call
I'm
him
not sure.
Mr. Dunn?
Like, yeah, I'm not sure like who it was, but either way, either person it was, the story goes the same. Mr. Dunn, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Dunn was not convinced. He wasn't sure. He hadn't heard it himself. The rumors were spreading, but he had to see for himself. So he stayed at his bank late one night. He stayed up, doing some extra little work, counting some of the money. And while he was inside of this building, it was quiet. Not a sound. Simple night. Until he heard a strange noise come from outside right around midnight. It sounded like it was up on the roof. Something maybe dropped down.
It's jumping between
and that
the
piqued his
roofs.
interest. So he walks over to the window and immediately he sees above him it's lit up by this bright light. It shines down through the window. But apparently he was able to squint through it just enough that he could see the winged creature behind that light. And what did Mr. Dunn do? He racked his shotgun.
Oh, a shotgun. Okay, Mr. Dunn.
He racked his shotgun and he fired straight through his window right at this creature. Once again, completely unaffected.
Wow.
Another shot. Racked another one. Nothing.
Does the creature move?
The creature, it fled. At this point, the second shot, it flies away. Once again, unfazed, unscathed by the barrage of bullets.
No scream of pain or anything from the creature?
Nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. The only thing left behind were a weird set of unusual 3-toed footprints found in the dirt.
A dinosaur print.
Yeah, right?
At this point, I'm thinking that this is a
pterodactyl.
dinosaur. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So,
wow.
After this, there's more reports. These people are credible. First, it came from a reliable, well-known, well-respected businessman. Then it came from the town doctor. Then it came from the bank teller, essentially. Yeah. Like, these were respected people. It wasn't just random people in the town.
Also, they have nothing to gain from this.
No, seriously, yeah. There was a lot of panic. And some other people described seeing things, spotting the creature perched on top of a light post at night or laying on top of the roofs. But nobody really else saw these strange lights or heard any of these sounds for really the rest of the day. But at this point, the night of the fourth night, the fourth night is coming to an end, and the town is fed up. The town does not want to deal with whatever this is anymore. Okay. So, go ahead.
I understand that the town is... No. Listen. I get that there's something jumping between the rooftops, but it's not really doing anything.
It's not, actually. It's literally not doing anything.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not really bothering
Still would be creepy
anyone.
as fuck. But
yes, like, it's not really doing anything other than, like, blinding the occasional person that bumps into it. Like, leave the poor dinosaur alone. At this point, I'm calling it a dinosaur. In my head, it's a dinosaur now. Like, I get it. Like, yeah, you've never seen it. It might look scary. It's making bumps in the dark, in the night, like in the rooftops. But, like, you wouldn't do anything if you see a deer running through the town. Like, leave it alone. You wouldn't do anything if it's a ferret or like maybe you would scare a raccoon off because it's like in your trash.
Okay, but this is like a big fucking winged bat creature.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not doing really anything. Like, leave it alone.
I guess so.
But yeah, I get it. It's new. It's scary. We want to kill things that are scary. We humans are bad at cohabitating with other things that are not humans. Even with humans, we're bad at cohabitating.
We're bad at it. Yeah, we want to take over or kill or both.
Yeah.
Everything.
Exactly. I get it. But just saying that, leave it alone. Anyway, they're
but
fed
they
up.
did not. They did not leave it alone. Something had
Of course.
to be done. Mm-hmm. So a group of townspeople, they got together.
Pitchforks
They
and torches.
armed themselves with their rifles. And they set out in the direction of the nearby coal mine. Because that's where it had been sort of seen flying in the direction of. Mm-hmm. They figured, oh, maybe it's staying at the coal mine. They walk over. They approach, and they start to hear those same strange noises that were heard before, that same smell from the coal mine. They walk up, and the creature steps out.
Of the coal mine?
Yeah,
Or like the
revealing
trees.
itself out of the shadows. But it wasn't alone. It had like a baby?
No way! I
Oh,
was
like,
gonna say if there was a child.
There's something. They described it as like a mini version, like a smaller one, like next to it.
Was it just one or was there multiple?
It was just one.
Please tell me that the town people left it alone. Please tell me
They
that
were
they left
about
it
to
alone.
shoot,
No.
but as they shot, or as they were going to, they both flew away and they took off into the night sky.
Kai, sorry. I swear, if you are pulling my leg about this story, I am going to be so upset because I have never heard of this story.
Look it up, man.
Like, it's such a wild out there story, but this is such a cute story at this point.
Right? It's okay, yeah. Okay, so they fly away. The townspeople are like, fuck, we missed our chance. So what do? They stay at the coal mine overnight. They're like, what if they come back? What if they return? And they do. The next morning, the creature, its kid, they come back, and what do the townspeople do? They open fire. They unload a barrage of bullets in the direction of these creatures. But it doesn't matter, because what they simply do is disappear into the darkness of the coal mine.
Oh, so like they kind of flew into the coal mine.
They flew back in.
Were there any like screams of pain because they shot them?
Nothing.
Okay.
Those creatures are completely unscathed, unfazed.
Are they
by
made
these
of like
bullets.
smoke or something?
No clue. But was never seen again. It was in that coal mine, and the townspeople, well, their logical decision was, let's seal it up.
Yep, of course.
So they did.
Let's go
bricked
and
up.
seal it.
I'm down.
I'm so down.
The Van Meter visitor has never been seen since.
2025 is the year to change that.
However, the town of Van Meter does host a annual Van Meter Visitor Festival.
Wow.
So they still kind of celebrate it.
Wait, I am so happy that they actually celebrate this. When?
They do, yeah.
Do you know when?
It's around the time, so like fall, like September, October, I believe is when it is. So yeah.
Oh my god.
I actually have a couple newspaper clippings.
Yes.
So this is from it was actually posted in the St. Paul Globe from St. Paul, Minnesota. So this is a Minnesota newspaper article. So like it even spread
a few states over.
further. Yeah. So this is posted Saturday, October 10th, 1903. So just about a week after all this happened.
Wow.
It says the town of the title is A Winged Monster, Creature Emitting a Dazzling Light Terrifies Hawkeyes. The town of Van Meter, containing 1,000 persons, is terribly wrought up by what is described as a horrible monster. Every man, woman, and child in the town is in a state of terror, and fully half of them fail to close their eyes in slumber except in broad daylight. The monster put in its appearance Monday night. U.G. Griffith, an implement dealer, drove into town at 1 a.m. and saw what seemed to be an electric searchlight on Mayer and Griggs' store. While he gazed, it sailed across to another building and then disappeared. His story was not believed next day, but the following night, Dr. A.C. Alcott, who sleeps in his office on the principal street, was awakened by a bright light shining in his face. He grabbed a shotgun and ran outside of the building. Shotgun, revolver is what I said, but who knows? Where he saw a monster, seemingly half human and half beast, with great bat-like wings. A dazzling light that fairly blinded him came from a blunt horn-like protuberance in the middle of the animal's forehead, and it gave off a stupefying odor that almost overcame him. The doctor discharged his weapon and fled into his office, barring doors and windows, and remained there in abject terror until morning. Peter Dunn, cashier of the only bank in the town, fearing bank robbers, loaded a repeating shotgun with shells filled with buckshot and prepared to guard his funds next night. At 2 o'clock, he was blinded by the presence of a light of great intensity. Eventually, he recovered his senses sufficiently to distinguish the monster and fired through the window. The plate glass and sash were torn out and the monster disappeared. Next morning, imprints of great 3-toed feet were discernible in the soft earth. Plaster casts of them were taken.
Oh.
It's pretty cool. I wonder if they still exist somewhere.
Probably. I want to see them.
That night, Dr. O.W. White saw the monster climbing down a telephone pole, using a beak much in the manner of a parrot.
Oh.
As it struck the ground, it seemed to travel in leaps, like a kangaroo, using its huge featherless wings to assist.
It's a dinosaur.
It gave off no light. He fired at it, and he believes he wounded it. The shot was followed by an overpowering odor. Sidney Gregg, attracted by the shot, saw the monster flying away. But the climax came last night. The whole town was aroused by this time. Professor Martin, principal of the schools, decided that upon the description it was an antediluvian animal. Shortly after midnight, J.L. Platt, foreman of the brick plant, heard a peculiar sound in an abandoned coal mine, and as the men had reported a similar sound before, a body of volunteers started an investigation.
Mm.
Presently, the monster emerged from the shaft, accompanied by a smaller one. A score of shots were fired without effect. The whole town was aroused, and vigil was maintained the rest of the night, but without result, until just at dawn, when the two monsters returned and disappeared down the shaft.
Wow. It's the whole ass story.
Yeah. Of course, it could have been somebody pulling off a prank, right? You know, it could have been a kid the first night. No, it could have, like, the first night, you know, maybe it was kids with a spotlight playing around, and then it turned into mass hysteria, and then they saw a bird or something and thought it was this big creature. Maybe it was a hoax.
But
maybe
then what did they see by the coal mine, like by the mine?
I have no clue.
Because that's a huge group of people seeing the same thing.
I did actually see a sort of a theory that people think, like, modern. It was like people think that it could have just been a big bird that people really exaggerated. So I'm going to send you a picture of a great hornbill. It's a type of bird.
Ah.
And once you take a look at it, you'll be able to see, like, where they kind of get the idea from.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, let me send it.
I would believe it could be a bird, but the spotlight throws me off.
Right? But
and
like,
also
that's the thing. It's
describing
like,
it as
what
9
the fuck?
feet tall?
Yeah, like how... I guess it was only seen at night, so like it could have been, you know, mistaken for things. There could have been like sleep deprivation or
humanoid
whatever,
as well,
but,
though.
Yes, exactly. Where is this picture at? I like have it saved, but it disappeared.
Humanoid, 9 feet tall with
Recently saved.
spotlight. That's a dinosaur.
Cool, I just sent you the picture.
Oh, love this.
Right?
And what is this bird called?
A great hornbill.
A great hornbill. Unless they're 9 feet tall, I would not believe it.
I don't know. Right? Like, I have no clue.
Also, are they?
I just
They're
thought this
not
was a
found
fun
in North
case.
America.
Probably not. Somebody thought it was probably someone's like exotic pet bird that escaped. And,
It's always someone's exotic pet.
yeah.
Like when we...
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's the story of the Van Meter visitor.
Thank you.
I hope you liked it. I did. I really love this one.
Van Meter visitor. I want to go to whatever festival they have, and I want to know like what merch they sell, like what drawings they have, or like if they have that cast of that 3
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be really cool.
print. Yeah. And if they still have that mine sealed up, because I want to check it out.
That would be fun.
I would pay money to go in that mine in a tour. I'm like, hey, show me. I don't know. I'm like, what are the chances that it's as stupid as it sounds, a dinosaur?
Like an unearthed dinosaur that was like trapped in ice and preserved, but it melted and it came back to life.
I don't know. It could be something. I mean,
Something like
of
that.
course.
Let us know your theories, listeners. I'm
If you're a
tired, guys.
visitor
I'm
to this
tired. I'm sorry.
episode, welcome.
Yeah. Or if you're the Van Meter visitor, even, let us know. Holy
Yeah.
shit, my face got red. Okay. Well,
Thank you, though.
this was a fun one.
That's something I did
I
not
enjoyed this one.
expect at all. I really thought we were going to like a lake or something.
No. I wanted to
Thank
steer clear from like a location today. I was like, I just want something fun and stupid.
Oh, this was
So,
fun for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the episode, I believe.
Thank you. That was fun for sure. Definitely took us away from the darkness, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kai.
Yeah, of course.
And listeners, keep an eye out for next week's episode. That's a bonus one for y'all. Like always, send us an email, send us a text. Let us know you're out there.
Please.
For all we know,
Please.
you're just another
Please.
Van Meter visitor.
Please.
Yeah, don't make Kai
right.
beg some more.
Well, take care, everybody. Thanks
Yeah.
for being here once again.
Smurf.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chambers of the Occult. For photos, sources, and anything else mentioned during the episode, check out our website at chambersoftheoccult.com. You'll find everything you need there if you do find yourself wanting more. You can also follow us on all of our socials at Chambers of the Occult and on Twitter at COTO Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, personal anecdotes, or concerns, let us know. Fill out our contact form on our website, email us at chambersoftheoccult@gmail.com, or leave us a message on our socials. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed what you heard, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It is absolutely the best way to show your support, and it would mean the world. Until next time.